Hello, everybody, and welcome to our August 2024 monthly BCMG meeting. My name is Leanna Benavides, and I'm currently serving as president of the Bexar County Master Gardeners. Let me advance here. There we go. For those of you who are not Master Gardeners that are joining us this evening, we are volunteers trained by Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service to provide research-based, locally relevant gardening information to our community in Bexar County and the immediate surrounding areas. Just some upcoming presentations. If you follow David Rodriguez, he will be presenting at the Northside Learning Center on Saturday, August 17th. So 2 days from today. That's at 6632 Bandera Road. There is a $10 fee for that one. And then he's got some other ones coming up there as well. There's a QR code if you're interested in registering for that. He will also be presenting at Fanix Nursery at 1025 Home Green Road. His upcoming presentation there is growing a fall vegetable garden for warm and cool weather veggies. And that will be on Saturday, August 24th at 10 a.m. And then there's some more presentations to follow later on through the year. He also presents at Millburgers Landscaping and Nursery. So that's at 3920 North Loop 1604. And his next one there will be on Monday, September 2nd, growing a fall vegetable garden, warm and cool weather veggies. And there's some other talks there as well. Coming up for us, our big event, Cultivate, in the fall season here. That will be on Friday, September 6th and Saturday, September 7th. We have 6 online webinar sessions for you, and they run from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on both days. All sessions are free. All sessions are approved for SAWS Water Saver Rewards. So if you have Water Saver Rewards through your SAWS account, and you log that you witched these sessions and answered the quizzes, you can get up to $150 in coupons to spend at your favorite local nurseries. For more information, go to our website, bexarmg.org. The homepage has a whole Cultivate section. You can review the offerings as well as sign up for those classes. And in September on the 13th, we're going to have a Lunch and Learn Fall into Winter Gardening. And the presenter will be Karen Gardner. She's one of our own BCMGs. That is from 12 to 1 p.m. at AgriLife Extension Service, Bexar County, 3355 Cherry Ridge Drive, Suite 208. You can go to our website and register to be there in person or watch live from Zoom. Okay, let me stop sharing my screen and I'm going to let our speaker begin sharing hers. So tonight we have Molly Keck, who is an integrated pest management program specialist and a board certified entomologist with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. And she's a graduate of Texas A&M University with a bachelor's and a master's degree in entomology. Molly has been working for Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service since 2005 and specializes in urban and landscape entomology and beekeeping. She provides beekeeping, pollinator, and pest management and identification programs to master naturalists, master gardeners, the general public, pest management professionals, and any other organization or group that wants to learn more about insects. And her talks are always fascinating. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn it all over to her, and she's going to go over her presentation with us this evening. Thank you, Molly.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks for joining us this evening. I was asked to speak not about a specific insect, but talking more about this pest management and how you can incorporate that practice into your garden, whether that's a garden, a vegetable garden, your turf, anything that really you can use IPM for anything, even indoors. So we this idea of integrated pest management when I'm giving any talk about how to manage any insect. Oops, it said hopefully I did not freeze on y'all because it's saying my internet was unstable for a second. But whenever I give a talk about any insect, I try to give ideas like cultural control. What can you do to alter the environment to make it so those bad bugs don't want to be there? What are some of the ways to encourage some of the good guys to come in? Um, because IPM is the best approach, we think, at controlling most insects. What it does is it brings insects to a level that you can tolerate and uses multiple ways to do that. So lots of different strategies, and that tolerable level is kind of very personal, right? What I can tolerate in my house as far as insects go, probably most people can't. My kids can't. I know that. I've been noticing lots of little spiders around. I leave those because I can tolerate them because I know they're there to eat bugs in my house if there is a bug in the house, right? I know that those are good guys. So everybody's tolerance level is going to be very different. What IPM is it's very ecologically based. So it takes into account that we're not the only humans that are on the planet. There are other things that we need to take into consideration. We need to be mindful of the environment. We can't just the place with pesticides because we don't like bugs. We have to know that some are good and some are bad, and some you just got to live with, right? Considers all available control tactics. And because of that, usually pesticides are a last resort. And you really only want to use pesticides, hopefully, after you've been monitoring and you're justifying the use of pesticides because you're identifying, oh, these definitely are bad guys. And I'm seeing that they're going to cause damage on my plant. Very personalized because of that tolerance level, the fact that everybody, you know, is okay with a certain number of insects on their plants or even in their house. And it's very proactive. So you have to be a little smarter. You have to think about these things now. As you're thinking about ending that summer spring garden and turning it over for fall, this is a good time to start taking in to practice some of these things that we're going to talk about. It is important to know, though, that IPM doesn't mean that you're not going to have any pests at all. You have to have some level this balance in nature. Not, then your bad go away. I'm sorry. If you kill all your pests, then your good guys are going to go away, and you're not going to have any beneficial insects. And then those pests are going to skyrocket. So you always have to have important, be okay with the fact that they're that are on a plant. You can't have nothing. And if you're having nothing in your landscape, that's not a good thing. You've got something. So this is basically what IPM is. It's this, we utilize or use this pyramid or triangle and to describe it. And it's kind of like rungs of a ladder, right? So you've got a lot of emphasis down at the base of this pyramid, cultural type practice. Next, with a little less emphasis maybe is physical or mechanical control. A little bit less than that is biological, using your good guys to kill your bad guys. Even at the tip top, the littlest, smallest amount of emphasis really is an input is utilizing pesticides, whether that's natural options or synthetic options, man-made options, whatever it is. A pesticide is still a pesticide. It still can negatively impact your beneficials. It could have some impact on human health. And so the goal is to really put a lot of effort into everything below that so that you aren't putting a lot of effort into utilizing pesticides. If all you do is grab the bug spray, you're reacting to a problem instead of preventing it from being an issue. And it probably is too late to be very effective in that case. So we always want to monitor. When we talk IPM and row crop kind of situations, they're constantly monitoring. They're scouting their field. They turn over leaves. Depending on what type of thing that they're growing, there are certain pests that are like the main issues there. And so they're counting like how many whiteflies per leaf, how many leaf, or they're randomly scouting and checking 10 every Friday. And when they get to a certain threshold, they know that RV. That's not exactly a science for us in an urban kind of a landscape and in a veggie garden, because we have a lot more different types can come in. But you sure that you're monitoring throughout your growing season and being really bad bugs always hide underneath. Bugs are really small too. Most of the bad bugs are itsy bitsy. I'm just pausing because it says I've got an unstable internet. again. So most of the time, the bad bugs are itty bitty, teeny tiny. So look where they're hiding underneath the leaves, in protected places. They're not exposed right out there in the sun because that's not where they necessarily want to be. They're not hiding in plain sight. And some really good, it doesn't, was suggested that I exit the webinar and rejoin. It won't matter. It's the way for whatever reason, that's the way my home internet gets to be sometimes. You can use hand lenses like a jeweler's loop or something like that, a good magnifier. I couldn't find a picture of it online, but they make these really awesome things that you can just stick to your, it will magnify it. You take a picture of it and then you can really blow it up and see it nice and neat. And sticky traps can be really effective also. There's blue ones, which are good for lighter colored insects like white flies. And then we have yellow ones. And some insects are attracted to yellow and some are more attracted to blue. So it will actually be kind of a passive way of reducing some of those bad bugs. But sticking those sticky traps in the middle of your garden, it's going to get dirty and you're going to get all sorts of weird stuff. And if you don't put it in the right place, you might catch a bird or two. But if you're wondering what is it that's coming into this garden and causing damage on these plants, especially if it's flying, then those sticky traps can be really, really useful and really nice. So breaking it down as to like what the rungs are of the ladder or the parts of the pyramid, cultural control, probably stuff you're already doing, but it's things we want to put the most emphasis in. And it sounds really confusing. The definition of cultural control is its manipulation of the environment to make it less favorable for the bugs, the bad bugs, or more favorable to encourage your good to come in. It's not as confusing as all that. Manipulating the environment might be something as simple as knowing that this certain insect loves to lay its eggs on weeds. So now let's clean up the weeds in the garden or move the garden to an area that's further away from that junky neighbor that has weeds, right? And you can also, a lot of cultural control involves having a good base knowledge of the insect that you're dealing with, that is your pest. Where does it like to hang out when it's not on my plant? How does it feed on my plant? Where does it lay its egg? Cycle? Does it require something that's not my tomato plant to be part of its life cycle and part of what makes it survive so that they either go elsewhere or they don't thrive in your garden and your beneficials will take. So the first thing that I would definitely do is purchase clean and healthy plants. When you go to the nursery, you go to a plant sale, you're doing a plant swap, whatever it is, turn over the leaves before you purchase it, knock it a little bit. If things fly off, that's probably a fairly infested plant. Maybe don't take it back into your garden. If there are things underneath it, all these things that you see there that to me kind of could be, just dirt, those are all aphids. And so by bringing plant and planting it, you're infesting everything that's probably adjacent to it. And then that's just going to keep snowballing and everything is going to get infested. So start out with clean and healthy plants. If it looks sick and it was 99 cents at HEB, it's probably not going to do very well in your garden. At the very least, if you have to buy it, quarantine it for a while until you get it more robust and then put it out there. In plants that always have an insect issue, putting signals out to those insects to come and feed on them. So anything that isn't looking good already is probably going to draw some insects in. And then remove and destroy those plants that are super infested. Learn when it's time to say goodbye to some of your plants. If they're, nothing has a finite life. Your tomatoes shouldn't be producing tomatoes when you plant them in February, all the way until this time of year, probably. They are struggling, right? So if you're dousing it and you're treating it and you're trying to get rid of the bugs on it, that plant might be telling you, I am ready to die. And the same thing really goes, you need to think about this as for landscape plants. Everything has a lifespan. Even oak trees, right? They should outlive us and outlive many generations of, has an end of its life. And so think about, how old is this plant? Do a little research. How long should it live? Maybe it's done. Maybe it's spent. If you don't, you're just going to bring in more bad bugs to the landscape. Sanitation, important. This is easy inside. We take the trash out. We wipe down the crumbs from the counters, cockroaches and ants and things like that. Outdoors is more about cleaning up. Sorry, I'm sure I froze again. Outside, it's more like cleaning up the weeds. So do not just weeding your garden, but think about the place of your garden. Like I mentioned, if your neighbor's junky and they don't take care of their yard, maybe that back fence isn't the best place to put your garden. And I do realize that's very much dependent upon light, drainage, where the faucet is. Lots of things play into that. But if you have some control over it, up next to the easement where there's a green belt behind you, or next to that junky neighbor, or if you live on multiple acres, don't put your garden up next to the part of your land where you're letting it kind of go natural. That will help, because every bed bug utilizes weeds as a part of its life cycle, whether it's to mate, lay eggs, over winter through the winter months, or just hang out to rest when it's not feeding, mating, or laying eggs. Also, choosing the right plant for the right location and planting will make a happier, healthier plant that will grow a lot quicker and generally will outgrow a lot of pest issues. So if you insects that are coming in, and this is specific vegetable garden than say a landscape plant, but things that are coming in early on tend to tell us that you have planted it incorrectly, planted the wrong variety. You've done something to stress this plant out so it can't really take root and get established. But once they become established, they generally don't have a lot of insect problems associated with them. It's getting them past that really vulnerable point. And that is easy to do in the landscape, hopefully, because, you've got lantana, you've got trees, you've got turf that you get established once you plant it. In a vegetable garden, everything's vulnerable all the time because it is only there for a few months, So that can be a little bit more difficult. But utilize the resources that are available to you. Figure out what zone you're in, figure out what plant within your zone. And the Aggie Horticulture has a really great fall garden. It's on the agrolifelearn.tamu.edu website, but you can also just kind of Google it, and other websites have that same table that you see right there. Figure out that, in region 1, the time you grow Brussels sprouts, you should put it in the ground is July 15th, right? And if you go outside of that window and you try to do it around the region 2 area, you're kind of outside that window of the best opportunity for that plant to do well. So planting too soon and planting too late can cause a lot of insect issues. So use the resources and the science that somebody has figured out. It's there for a reason. And if it says don't even try it, don't even try growing things like that. People will say, well, I used to grow this really well when I lived in North Dakota. Well, it's San Antonio. It doesn't grow that well here. Or if you move from Dallas, that's a whole other state almost, right? So the climate is very different. The soils are very different. Use your zone map and use your gardening guides that the horticulture program has figured out. Other cultural control methods, I already mentioned this, know when it's time to get rid of that plant, right? Like you've got all these tomatoes and you're like, but look, I've got a few little green ones that are going to, produce for me. Well, the longer you let these sad little plants stay in here, the more bad bugs you're bringing into your garden that are then going to move over to the other vegetables that are still able to produce fruit. There used to be a little boutique, they called themselves a boutique farm, and they were in, I don't know, Kerrville, Fredericksburg, something like that, somewhere up there. And they grew like odd, not normal stuff, right? They didn't grow like the tips people have in their backyard. And they would leave squash in the ground so much longer than they should. And then cucumber beetles would come in and they'd move into the cucumbers and they'd attack other things and other varieties of squash, because he was like, well, I can get, another 10 or so off of them and sell them at the farmer's market. You're not making enough money off of those 10 squash. They weren't, at least, to justify the loss on all the other crops that they have. So also think about that in your garden. You're not going to produce enough tomatoes in this picture situation to justify everything else that's getting eaten up. It's cheaper to buy some tomatoes from HEB in this case than it is to leave those plants in the ground. Just pull them up and wait until the next season. Even established plants just can't live. So happy, healthy plants generally don't attract bad bugs to them. When they are not healthy, they release pheromones that tell the other insects to tree, a shrub, a flowering plant, something that is constantly, you have some sort of plant that is constantly being attacked by an insect. And maybe it's been happy for most of its life, but something changed. Tree got so big that maybe it's too shaded. You trim the limbs on a tree and now it's getting too much sun. Something happened. The soil got too compacted. It's not draining well. And it can happen from year one to detective work and figure out why that insects to it. The insects are a symptom of a greater issue. So to keep happy, healthy plants, water them well, fertilize them when you should, so that they are able to grow, get established, and hopefully outgrow by growing quickly any damage that insects might be doing. And plant-free periods, especially when it comes to a vegetable garden or crop rotation more than anything, depending on what your insect issue is. Like if you grow potatoes and you end up getting mealworms or wireworms, I'm sorry, in your potatoes, you'd have to excavate all that soil to be able to plant potatoes in that same space. So in some cases with certain insects, you actually have to not plant anything or let that soil grow fallow so that let it go fallow, sorry, so that in a few years you can start growing it again. But definitely consider crop rotation. If you have multiple beds, like most people do, and even if you don't, if you just have one giant bed, don't always have one spot where you're growing your tomatoes and one spot where you're growing cucumbers and one spot where you're growing your peppers. Switch things up, but do it by family. So you're on with your cucurbits, squash, cucumbers, melons, I think are cucurbits. Don't keep planting them in the same spot. Move it around from season to season, year to year, because those bad bugs don't have to go anywhere. They're just underneath that soil waiting for you to plant their favorite food source. Even if you just moved it a few feet over, for you, it doesn't take but a couple seconds to get there. But for an insect, it's harder. They're exposed to sunlight, this hot heat, a predator like a lizard or a bird or something. And chances are you're going to reduce that population by moving things around. But remember to do it by family, not just by the type of plant that it is. So that's cultural control type things, somehow manipulating the environment, the garden to the next bed, giving them more water. They're not stressed out because it's August and it's finally getting hot, right? Mechanical control is the next step. And that is physical control, type practices, super easy for us to do inside. We close doors, we use window screens. HEB has the air curtain that blows down when the door opens, right? Things to physically. Outside, it's really hard because that's in nature where, they're in nature. That's where they're supposed to be. Some of the things that are physical or mechanical control, first, turn the soil over. Tilling used to be a practice that a lot of people would do. And when I was a kid, my parents had a tiller. And every time my mother had a new garden, he would get out there and he would till the garden for her. And tilling is a practice that is not always recommended any longer because it messes with the microbes in the soil. Beyond what I know, those don't have legs, so I don't quite understand. At the very, get out there, whether it's with your hands, a rake, a shovel, and just, you can lightly turn over the soil. Your soil's like, you can rock, or maybe you have a couple inches of soil, but turn it over so that eggs, pupa, are now exposed to the sunlight, the elements, and then they're going to hopefully die and dry out. Or if they're larvae or they are adults, you are physically harming them, but you're also doing the same thing, exposing them to some natural enemies, or you're spotting them and you're able to pick them up and kind of squash them. So turning that soil over between growing seasons to prep that bed is really important. Using tomato cages as a form of physical control. So if you're growing tomatoes, that's something that you're already doing. You are forcing things to not flop over on the ground, but to grow up. And so there's less surface area where insects can hide, less surface area with the soil. Using floating or horizontal trellises. So if things like to grow as a trellis or as a vine, let them. Cucumbers, squash. you can do like a just up off of the ground a few inches. It doesn't have to even be that much. A horizontal trellis, and allow that squash to kind of grow over it. And now you've got all this airflow and this circulation happening under here that is not happy. It does not make those insects, bad bugs, happy. It also makes it a lot easier for your good guys to find those guys. Sharp blasts of water or just replicating rain can do. So if you really think about it, like earlier this summer, we had good, decent amounts of rain at really good time periods, right? And we haven't yet. So if you think back to like May, June, and even a good portion of July, it rained well. And I bet you didn't notice a lot of insect issues in your garden, probably for a couple of reasons. It was raining, so the plants were growing fast and well, but the rain was washing a lot of those bad bugs off of your plants. Doesn't kill them, but it gets them off, and it's harder for them to get back on, or something happens on the way back up there. I mean, that's a trek to get back on a plant. It doesn't seem like it because we're huge, but an insect is little. So replicate rain if you can. And if you're looking out in your garden now, I bet you're noticing more insect damage because it hasn't rained in so long. So aphids are taking over, whiteflies are becoming numerous, small things that naturally just get washed off are not. So sharp blasts of water if the plant can tolerate it, right? Like you could do that on the trunk of a tree if you had scales, or if you had, shrubs, a woodier type of a plant could tolerate that. Tender plants, just make it be like rain. Row covers are also really helpful. I think I have another picture, examples of other types of row covers. You just, bump it and make sure all the bugs kind of come off of it before you trap them inside there. And hand picking, it does such amazing things, and you don't always realize it does. But if you can get out there every day and be a good gardener and hand pick all of the bugs off of your plant that know bad first before you guys, you can really significantly reduce the pest population. And the good news is you're not growing acres and acres of food. You're growing full of plants that hopefully makes it more reasonable for you to be able to do that. One is to describe how good hand picking is when you're Rodriguez and I had I'm waiting. I think when mine comes up and says I was unstable, it usually means I froze like prior to that. So if I backtrack what I was saying, one example that I try to use about hand picking is a field study that David Rodriguez and I were doing at the children's garden, at the botanical garden. And we were evaluating different products against cabbage loopers on cabbages. We had a lot of cabbages. And when you do research, a field trial, you usually have a plot that you don't do anything to. That way it's your comparison to everything else. It should look the worst, right? So we had this control plot, is what you call them. And it happened to be, because they were randomly assigned, right next to where some kids were. And the kids were taught to handpick those cabbage loopers off of the plants. And so they thought they were doing us a favor, and they turned around and they handpicked every Saturday cabbage loopers off. And by the end of that, I don't know how long it was, an 8-week study, 6-week study, that control plot looked just as good as the ones that where we were using really good pesticides on it. So hand picking, while that was a lot of little tiny fingers with really good eyes and nothing else to do, you can do it in your garden if you have the same patience. These are some pictures. Well, actually, no, it's not. Another form of mechanical or physical control is this kind of reflective mulch. Find a good these off of nursery websites. Just if you go to Amazon and you Google reflective mulch, it's not actually mulch. It's just a sheet of shiny plastic, and that shine kind of radiates up underneath the leaves, and it irritates bad bugs, and so they don't like to get on it. So that's a form of control. I would assume that this picture is just from the internet. It was probably taken in like an organic farm or something like that. We use this a lot with strawberries too, a lot of times, but you can buy these in sheets, in rolls, or you can buy them in little sheets. And so that if you have, I'm dealing with this certain insect all the time, maybe trying that. Mulch itself can be helpful only because it's not as a physical irritant. It might be harder for the bugs to get under underneath it. If you find happiness the plant is, the less likely the insects are going to be able to make it look worse or make it look bad. Here's another example of a row cover. You can also just do cheap floating row covers and buy that fabric, put some stakes in the ground, lay it over like a cucumber. If cucumber beetles are, it gets established and it gets going, and or you notice that that pest population is not as obvious and noticeable. Plant collars also can work. You can use, that's like a coffee cup or something. It looks, it doesn't even look plastic. PVC pipes, a Coke can that you cut the top and bottom off of. You're just making it the slicker it is, the better. Out in the elements, it's going to roughen up and it's going to be grip onto. But you're keeping, as they're crawling across the ground, they're not able to get them. They're going to have to work harder to get to your plant. Slow stuff down enough that the damage isn't as bad. And then biological control is using your to get rid of your bad guys. And so you can either purchase things and release them into your garden, which doesn't work very well because we have, if you go outside and you count the different varieties and or species of plants that you have, you've got tons. Even in a small landscape, you have definitely over 10, right? I would bet a lot of people probably have close to 25. Lots of different things. So when you release enemies into a mulcher like a cotton field or some row crop where there is the same food source, so there's a lot of pest, whatever likes to eat that pest can be released, stay put because there's lots. But in our landscape, because we have such diversity, releasing natural enemies, they take off, usually don't stick around. I mean, do it if you like doing it, but it's not. The better option is indirect manipulation, where we identify we have good guys, we decide to cut back on our pesticide use, or we utilize target specific pesticides, either like BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, that only kills caterpillars, so we don't hurt our beneficials, or we're targeting where we apply those pesticides so that we are a little less harmful on our beneficial insects. An insecticide is an insecticide. It's going to kill all insects, whether they're good, bad, pollinators, or whatever. So if you have good guys on your plants that you want to salvage and have survive, don't apply pesticides because they're the most susceptible because they're not used to it. They're not exposed to it like aphids are all the time or whatever, So here are a handful. There are so many more natural enemies in your garden that you are going to come across, but these are the big ones, that maybe the more noticeable ones. So everybody knows what a lady beetle is, a ladybug, but I don't think everyone always recognizes what their larvae look like, and they'll kill them because they think they look mean. I think if it looks mean, leave it around because it's eating something probably. So the ladybug larvae starts out with these little bitty eggs that are like a golden color, orangey almost in color. And there's other insects that will make that color egg, but if I tend to just assume it's a ladybug, especially if there's aphids around. So I usually leave them alone. The hatch out and they look like little alligators, and they can vary in color. So like this one's a lot fatter in the top right. It's probably ready to become a pupa. Bottom left is thinner. The one down here is not as fat as this guy, so he's younger probably. And then they're going to become a pupa. And that usually happens away from the plant, but you'll see eggs and larvae of varying sizes on a plant, usually with aphids, sometimes with mealybugs, sometimes with scales, sometimes with spider mites, white flies, things that are about their size or smaller, and things that where there's a lot of them and they aggregate. They don't hunt real well. They like to kind of let the food be obvious to them. So where you have, if you have your okra right now and it's loaded up with aphids today, wait until tomorrow. I bet you'll see a ladybug or two tomorrow. And if you wait until Sunday, I bet you there's a lot less aphids because the ladybugs are all going to come in and kind of help you out. When they become adults, there are a lot of different species that have a lot of different looks to them. All ladybugs except for one are either red with red or orange with black spots, or they are black, solid black with red spots. There is a species, the male form, I think, is gray with black spots, but it's not, I mean, just black. You're pretty safe. And then you hear about the Asian ladybug, the one that, people say is bad. Ladybugs are good, but the Asian lady beetle is bad. That's BS. That's just social media junk that circulates around. All ladybugs are good. Right now, that Asian ladybug is out there in your yard and it's gobbling up aphids and whiteflies and all sorts of things that you don't want in your landscape. But one thing that they do that's weird and is a nuisance is when it cools off, they overwinter as adults in tucked away places. And so that can be the crevices of trees, the eaves of your house. And because it's Texas, when it gets sunny, it's gotten cold, and now it's a sunny day in January, they get to moving around, and they're already adults instead of having to become adults. And they are attracted to your hot back because you're doing fence work or gardening, right? And all ladybugs can bite. I can bite, right? That people ask, will it bite? Well, I don't know, but if you stuck your finger in my probably bite you. So if you put your finger in their mouth, they're probably going to bite. But also they're kind of like birds, right? They can't feel, they don't have hands. So they use their mouth to eat you, trying to figure out what the heck you are, If a giant lacewings are another beneficial insect. If you go outside and you kind of knock foliage like your lantana or plumbago or foliage, bushes and shrubs that are pretty flush right now, you'll see these. They almost seem like they're wasps kind of floating out, but they don't fly real zippy. Those are probably lacewings. Leave your porch lights on at night if you can stay up that late and go outside to look, and you'll probably see lacewings around your porch lights eating on small things that are attracted to the light. So the adults are really obvious, or the adults are most often seen, I should say. They're very lime green, very pretty, very fairy-like in the way that they fly. And when they lay eggs on little stalks, and it can be on leaves, it can be on patio furniture, it can be, I saw it on a chain link fence one time, a trash can. They don't care. Wherever they land and they need to lay eggs, they do it. But they lay them on these little stalks because they will all hatch around the same time. And the first one that hatches, they're so ferocious as these little larvae that the first one that hatches, if they were laid flat, would eat all their brothers and sisters. So by laying them on stalks, they're more concerned with getting down than they are in looking and seeing these little eggs moving and catching a predator. So it's an adaptation because they're such ferocious predators. So if you see the adults or you see these eggs, you've got the larvae somewhere. They're just so small and really hard to even know what it is unless you know what you're looking for. But that might tell you that if you have these close to your garden or landscape and you're noticing some aphids or some issues, maybe see if these guys take over for you, if they help manage the problem before you have to intervene with pesticides. Praying mantises can be beneficial too. You can purchase some and you can buy little egg cases of them. You might find these egg cases also on furniture, on trees, on usually not on plants. They kind of need like a rougher surface to kind of, or not on plants, meaning like leaves or things like that. They need a sturdier. And out of it comes a bunch of little cute praying mantises, but they will wander. So if you purchase these egg cases and but in your landscape, these are always exciting to find. I don't care who you are. If you see a praying mantis, you get excited. These assassin bugs or wheel bugs. This is not a wheel bug, but a wheel bug has like a spoked wheel kind of a thing on its back, a big round hump. It's a type. So assassin bugs are similar to stink bugs. They're actually in the same order as stink bugs are. But stink bugs and the bad guys, if you're able to flip them upside down and look, the sap sucking bugs have really long mouth parts that will go past the first set of legs. They also have like a fat webbed head, right? Because they don't have to look for prey. They just find a plant, put their mouth part in it, drink the juices. An assassin bug has a very to see the mouth parts, they're very short. They might touch the first set of legs, but they don't go down in between the legs like the stink bug does. And this might be an immature bug, wheel, but the more neck, and it's just a little stabber, a little dagger that they use to penetrate whatever it is they're eating. Shoot it with some spit, dissolve the inside, and slurp up all of the juice that is made in that bag. Past them all the time is good. Spiders are also beneficial. I wouldn't bother any spider. We only have, this surprises everybody, we only have two types of medically important spiders in Texas. That's the recluse and the widow spiders, because we have brown widows, southern black widows, northern, I don't know if we had northern black widows, but there's different species of widows. And same thing with the recluse. There's a few different species of recluse spiders. They're not all technically brown recluse, but they all look exactly the same. It's hard to tell the difference. So those guys are hiding, right? They're underneath furniture outside. They're hiding in maybe a boot that has been in your garage. Like they're finding kind of tucked away, reclusive places. Sometimes black widows especially might nest in vents or somewhere on your patio or stone near a porch light, because they can dart out, get their food easy, and maybe they're like nesting behind the widows. Recluses like to be inside, but they are also found out in piles and things like that. Spiders that are on your plants and in your garden and making themselves known to you are not the bad spiders. They're another type of spider, and all the other types of spiders, in my opinion, are beneficial. So if you want to know what these guys are, the one, if you go clockwise from the top left, this is a type of jumping spider. They're usually found on leaves, actively hunting, or on plants. Wolf spiders are on the ground, rock gardens, cactus gardens, things like that. And they hunt at night. An orb weaver is this guy, he's a type of orb weaver. So the bottom two are both orb weavers. They make a web. Zipper spider or Argiope spider, Argiope, I don't know how to pronounce it, is really, really big, and it's scary. It's not trying to hurt you. It can't take you down. It doesn't, even a recluse and a black widow, they're not trying to take you down. They're going to do something. It didn't come fine. Other good predators in the landscape, a natural Indian wasp number on caterpillars. They eat them themselves and they shove them in these little holes. That's actually a little larvae wasp looking at you right there. So they help reduce caterpillars in the landscape. Syrphid fly. This is a syrphid. The top big picture is a syrphid fly larvae. You can see like the dead bodies of aphids. It's, as it's crawling up and spitting out their exoskeletons. The adults often resemble wasps or bees, and they're really good pollinators. The larvae are really good predators. So one way that you can bring them into the landscape is by planting herbs and letting the herbs flower or bolt. That will attract the adults, and where you have more adults, you make more boyfriends and girlfriends, and then you have more babies that are born. And so, in this last 5 minutes or so, we are going to talk mainly about pesticide use. And I tried to get rid of the boring slides and just keep, if you're going to talk about, got to talk a little bit about chemical control. And I would just say I'm using the definition of a pesticide. It's a thing that's meant to kill, mitigate a pest. So sometimes automatically of like harsh chemicals, but organic or natural methods are pesticides as well. So we have different ways that we can use pesticides are made. Now, pesticides are usually what most people consider organic. but like think of earth or certain types of oils. Well, those are technically synthetic too, you know, or a little bit more environmentally friendly, you know, am I just trying to be organic? But what does that exactly mean to me? Because that might open up more options for you that you didn't realize you had opportunities to use. So natural, from some sort of pathogen, they are have a very short residual, which is why we like them, because they get out of the environment. They're not sticking around for a really long time. Not so great if you have a major pest, right? Like a bed bug in your house. You want to last a little bit longer, but in your landscape might synthetic make it in the lab, and it's usually developed off of some plant material that was known to be a good pesticide, but we want it to last a little bit longer. So they don't always, but they may have a longer residual in the environment, depending on your situation, what you're looking, that may be what you're looking for. And we have different options, right? So when you're choosing pesticides, what we really want to look for are things that are lower impact and lower impact on, because I think people hear based products, rotenone being one of those, that are incredibly harmful to human health, like gonna affect your brain in bad ways neurologically, versus some synthetic and man-made ones that are not going to impact you in the same way. So natural doesn't always mean nicer, and nature is not always nice, right? Like if somebody told you that poison oak was the best pesticide in the world and it gets rid of bed bugs so great, you're not going to douse your bed in poison oak oil, right? Sometimes nature produces some pretty gnarly stuff. But those things that we consider to be low impact, where they have less impact on the environment, are insect growth regulators. Also, there's chitin synthesis inhibitors. So an insect growth regulator slash chitin synthesis inhibitor will either keep a female from laying eggs or prevent the eggs from hatching, or just keep, you know, it kind of like is birth control. Chitin synthesis, it chitin is in their exoskeleton, and so it will make them molt when they shouldn't, or prevent them from molting, so they get deformed and they never make it to adulthood, which means they never lay eggs, and so the population will start to slowly get smaller. Microbe derived pesticides, BT is the best example of that. It's a microbe that, when it's consumed by caterpillars, there's BT for caterpillars, BT for flies, including mosquitoes, and there's a BT for beetles also. That's more for like pine beetles, not really for us to use. It affects their gut and makes them really sick, but it doesn't affect our gut or other things' guts. Then there's organic toxins. Spider venom's a new one. That's kind of cool that's being utilized. Botanicals, neem, which is like not rotenone, but there's another name for it. It starts with an A. I'm not going to waste my time trying to think of it. Waste y'all's time. Pyrethrins, limonene is like orange oil type stuff. And then we have minerals and non-natural minerals and minerals, right? Diatomaceous earth, that should be sulfur without an E, or sulfurs, insecticidal soaps, mineral oils, things like that. Kind of, some of those can be petroleum based. And I will put this picture in here just to kind of make a point that we have come a long way with our pesticides, right? We don't spray the beach with the kids naked running around on the beach with anything. We wouldn't even do it with essential oils. You imagine what people would freak out about. Point being is that we have been shifting in the past 20 years, especially, away from things that persist in the environment a long time and really aren't good for the environment, to things that are a little bit shorter lived. And so we're taking into account integrated pest management, things that, even with our pesticide use, things that are not going to harm everything else that's around us. And I'm not going to get into pesticides, right? But there are lots of options for lots of different insects, and it's really specific to whatever the insect is that you want. So I was thinking, what's a good thing to have on my shelf? It depends on what you're dealing with, but I would say spinosad is a good option, but we are seeing certain things because we've overused it because it was so nice to use. So no matter what you're using, make sure that you change it up often instead of using the same thing over and over again. Um, that's my email address down over there. If you guys ever have questions, feel free to shoot me an email. You've got bug pictures. That's always the best way to um, get me to identify an insect because I can blow it up and I can look at it on the computer is via email. And then I think on this QR code, if you do it, let me do it too while y'all are, I think it takes my, no, it doesn't. Don't do that. It's like a questionnaire that's meant for when I do a Master Gardener class. So ignore that QR code. But if you haven't joined my email list, I can get you put on it or at least send you the link to add your email to it. And that's how I just get the word out about webinars and classes and, be on the lookout for this is what we're seeing. And this is why we're seeing it. I'm not crazy with my emails. I might do it when I get frisky but usually it's like once a month. And if you aren't already, or you haven't heard of our podcast, myself and Wizzy, who is my position, but in Travis County, she and I have a podcast and we talk about all the bugs that are kind of within the confines of your yard. And sometimes we talk about how to control the bad ones, but a lot of times we talk about who's good and why they're good. So if you're into podcasts, check that out. A question did come through on the chat that's asking, what do you think about liquid seaweed on plants for bugs? I'm not sure. So usually liquid seaweed is used as like and not an additive, but like a way to make the plants healthier. And so in that way, if it's making the plants healthier, then it can reduce insect pressure because they're happier. But I also think that liquid seaweed has a little bit of sulfur in it, but I don't know that it has enough to actually be an insecticide. So what it's generally used for is for maintaining healthy plant as a plant amendment. There you go. That's the word I'm looking for there. Y'all have any other questions?
If you have any questions for Molly, please put them in the Q&A. We cannot acknowledge raised hands, and I believe chat is disabled. So if you have a question, Q&A, and she'll get to it for you. Okay, I don't see any questions coming in. So, oh wait, something just popped up. Is BT good to get rid of grasshoppers off of Turk's caps?
No, BT only affects caterpillars. B and BTI only affects flies, and grasshoppers are neither of those.
Any other questions for Molly? Okay.
What do I use for grasshoppers? You just have to wait them out. I mean, you pyrethroid, something that ends in a thrin. Just keep it away from the flowers if you can. Flowers, then it doesn't bring the flowers. And they're like deer. If it's grasshoppers, they're a lot like deer, where you might have a deer resistant plant, but they're still going to taste it, right? And so even if you kill the you have hundreds of them taking one bite and you're still going to see some damage. So keep that in mind. And then a question came in about no-low bait for grasshoppers. That we aren't for most control over using. So it's got to be placed like out. You've got a grasshopper issue, you can't use no-low bait. Or you can, but it's not really going to do about it. And for when they first come out of the egg, so it's more of an early spring thing where the eggs have been laid.
We have someone who says they have used cayenne and garlic powder to deter grasshoppers. What are your thoughts on that, Molly?
Um, if it works for you, it works for you. I mean, I don't, um, they don't taste like we do. So, um, it's probably not hot for them, but I mean, it's probably not hurting the plant either. So it's, but it's not, it's so working for a state agency, we can't recommend homemade remedies. So I can't say do it or don't do it. But I haven't seen any scientific studies where it does work. But if it works for you, I don't want to argue with success.
Any other questions for Molly? Okay, well, her email address is there, mekeck@ag.tamu.edu. And that's the office number as well if you want to give her a call if you're having a bug issue. And also, Molly will be presenting at our Cultivate event on Friday, September 6th. Her topic will be beneficial insects, predators, parasitoids, and recyclers. And that's going to start at 10:30 a.m. So register for that if you want to hear more from Molly. Molly, thank you so much for being with us tonight and sharing your IPM presentation with us. And we're going to go ahead and I'm going to switch to share my screen. And this portion of the meeting is for our BCMG members, so our certified active master gardeners. So if you're joining us from the general public, you are able to log off now. But for the rest of us, whoops, wrong one. Still trying to learn how to share from a Mac. Let's see here. Let's try that one. There we go. Okay, can y'all see that? Hopefully, not that I can hear any answers there. That should be my new screen. Okay, so moving right along. Update from David. He could not be with us this evening as he was, let's see. Why did it do that? Hold on. Are people seeing my screen? Panelists?
No.
No, okay. That's what I thought. Hang on. No, that's not what I want. Oh, it might be. Hold on. Okay. For some reason, it paused my screen sharing. Let's see here. Okay. Can you see anything? Let's see.
No.
No. Okay. I wonder if it was because we had to get, oh, hang on. No, okay, let's see. Because it should have gone back to letting me share my screen now that Molly stopped sharing hers. Well, let's try that. I keep hitting resume share and it won't. Let me try again. Hold on. Let me get out of here. Okay, let's see.
There you go.
Now? Okay, good. Yay. All right. Let's see. Whoops. Bring this down. Okay, update from David. David could not be with us. He is at the TNLA convention, which is happening today and tomorrow, but he does continue to thank us for all that we do to help him out. He does remind everybody fall is for planting. We are fortunate here in San Antonio to have two major planting seasons. And we've got more events, event invitations, and opportunities for volunteering coming up. So I know summer's been really hot and really uneventful. There's just really not a whole lot going on. So we've all kind of had a little breather, but things are going to start picking up. So if you still have not certified and you need to catch up on your volunteer hours, fall is a great time to do so. Okay, Butch, can you go ahead and unmute yourself so that you can give us the update, the financial update?
I did. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Like Leanna said, slow month. Program income was lower than we normally have, but July is hot month, not many activities. We did receive a couple of IRS refunds for overpayments that we made. Interest continues to do very well. The $172 in the plant sale gross is the leftover plants from the Festival of Flowers that we sold to Millburgers. The expenses are all standard salary, web payments, and things of that nature. But we still came out in the black at $459.90. I expect things to, like Leanna said, to pick up as we're doing the Ask a Master Gardener events at the with the Traveling Beads Rose Show. We've started the events at the military bases for the fall planting, so we'll get some SAWS reimbursements there. And we have an insurance payment, a pretty sizable insurance payment that's coming up in this month. So that'll be reflected next month. And then we just got our Champions for Charity invitation to register, so we'll be doing that again. So with that, are there any questions?
Any questions for Butch? Okay, I don't see anything coming in. Butch, I think everybody's pretty okay with the report.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Butch. And Butch mentioned the Talking Bees workshops. If you have not been to one of those talks, Conrad, I forget his last name, but he's from Round Rock Honey. He's been going around to different library branches all over town, giving these Talking Bees presentations, and they are really interesting. And I learned, trying to plug this in here, I learned a whole lot from his presentation at my home library of Encino. And the cool thing that I heard him say was that for every presentation that he does at a library, the library then becomes eligible to receive grant funding from HEB so they can start a pollinator garden there at the branch. So if you get a chance to go out and support him, and our Ask a Master Gardeners are out there as well. Everybody welcome Humberto Cruz. He is AgriLife Extension's new horticulture office assistant. He's already been sending emails, so you've probably seen his name come in with the emails about David's upcoming talks and events. Please remember, David is his boss. He reports to David, not to BCMG. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, grumblies, send them to the board@bearmg.org. Do not send them to Humberto. One, we don't want to scare him off. And two, there's not a whole lot he can do about it because he is a horticulture admin assistant. Okay, you probably got a little leaflet express yesterday. It was kind of last minute information that we received. So the Sabbath had a program formerly called GROW, and they've renamed it to Dementia Friendly Gardening Workshop. They're having a training session next Wednesday, August 21st from 9 to 10:30 a.m. at the Sabbath in Classroom A. If you would like to participate in this program, you will need to attend training. And so we ask that you please contact Allison Russell at arussell@sabot.org. This activity has been approved for volunteer hours, so you can get VHs in VMS for this. But again, in order to participate, you have to go to the training. So if you're interested, please contact Allison. And something else that has been popping up in the leaflets recently, we're about to start Class 67. Class 67 starts next Wednesday as well. And if you're interested in serving as a mentor to any of those new interns, please complete that little Google form application. The link is in the leaflet. The mentor program, especially like with Class 66, as you'll see in just a bit, half of them have already certified. And I know that they've been utilizing their mentors, asking them questions, etc. So if you're interested in that, fill that form out for us. The certification requirements for 2025. So for this year, in order to be certified and active next year, 30 volunteer hours, 6 CEs, 2 monthly meetings. Class 66 interns, as you've completed your 50 hours, you are becoming certified. If anybody has a question about a PIN, if they have not received it yet, you can contact Susan Noonan. If you have a question about your hours and where you're standing, you can contact Owen Kaiser. Now, the numbers that we have are through July 31st. So if you recently completed your 30 hours and your 6 CEs and your 2 meetings were included, but you did that on August 7th, you're not counted yet. The reports are always the month prior. So as of today, we have 48% recertified and ready to go for 2025. So I can't sing Bon Jovi just yet. If anybody gets that reference, I'll probably sing it next month and you'll know what song I'm talking about. Class 66, 54% of you have already certified, and it's only August, which I think is very impressive. So hats off to Class 66, we're getting there. Newly certified as of July 31st, Barbara Bressler, Caroline Brooks, Glenn Godwin, Marcia Krasner, Martina Malden, Robin Maymar, Sherry McShane, Nancy Socher, Janice Tapp, Jan Tower, Cindy Tortelot, and Mary Young from Class 66. So congratulations. You can get your PIN beginning next month at the next meeting will be in person. Oops. Okay. So it's August and you know what time that is. It's time to form a nominating committee. And if you recall, earlier this year, we had updated the policy, and it's policy M10. So just to kind of recap, why are you not clicking? There you go. Okay. We need 6 people to step up to volunteer for this committee. 5 will be acting members and 1 will be an alternate in case one of the members can no longer serve. You can volunteer for this if you are a certified master gardener in good standing. The committee, once it's formed with the 6 people, they will elect their own chair. And you can serve on the committee for up to 2 consecutive years. And so that kind of helps with when you have new people coming onto the committee. If you have people that have been there or did it the year before, they can kind of show people the ropes so it's not as confusing or daunting. If you are interested in serving on the nominating committee, email board bcmg.org. And it's basically going to be first come, first serve, as long as you all are certified. And when you email that to that address, all 7 board members get it at the same time, and it's time stamped. So we'll be able to see who came in and when. So please consider stepping up to form this committee. What the nominating committee does is in September, they will start seeking out interested candidates who want to serve on the 2025 board of directors. And so if you want to run and you say, okay, I'm interested in running, they'll talk with you. They'll kind of ask you a few questions. They might talk to other MGs that they know that may be interested in a leadership role for BCMG. And they'll do that all through the month of September. They prepare a report or a slate to turn into the board right before the general meeting in October. And then the slate is presented to the membership at the October monthly meeting. And then, of course, if anybody else wants to run from the floor in October, they can. But right now, we're just talking about nominating committees. So today, log your CE or your monthly meeting as a CE in VMS. You can call it IPM with Molly Keck, and use today's date, Thursday, August 15th. Even if you're watching a recording later, use August 15th so we know. Does anybody, I'm going to leave this slide up for just a little bit so you all can take pictures of it. Anybody have any questions, comments? Has anything come in, panelists? I don't hear my panelists. Hope I didn't lose them. Okay, so think of me next week. My baby girl is moving 20 minutes away from home. 20 minutes, but it feels like 20 hours because she is the last one to leave my little nest. So now my nest is going to be empty. So if you guys think of anything that can help me occupy my time, send your ideas my way. We have a question here. Where do you find the recording of the July meeting? The July meeting has since been removed because of today's meeting. So the meetings are recorded. They come out in the leaflet, usually the following week, and they're up. The videos are up until the next meeting. So since we're having the meeting today, the July meeting is no longer visible. So just kind of keep that in mind. You typically have a full month to watch those recordings. Anyone else have a question? Are we all good? Okay. Well, I don't see anything else, so I will let you go ahead and go about your evening. Stay cool. Next meeting will be in person at the Botanical at 1 p.m. And for those of you wondering, why did we have 3 Zoom meetings in a row? It's because the Sabbath has summer camps, so we cannot use the classrooms June, July, or August. So that's why we did them all on Zoom, which, you know, I don't know about you, I cannot tolerate heat very well these days, so I'm fine with them being on Zoom. But next month, for September, we'll all be back together again at the Sabbath so we can catch up, pick up name badges, clothing orders, and pins for those who have certified. So thank you all so much for coming, and have a great evening.